What we'll be doing is we'll start with a little drawing, and then I am basically thinking about my main ideas or my bigger shapes, like my pumpkin and then my flowers. Those would be the ones that I would draw. The other parts to it are just going to be painted freehand. But feel free to draw if you feel that that helps you. I just, like to kind of do the leaves freehand, and we'll talk about a way that you can do that too today. What I'm going to be doing is just first thinking about getting this on my paper. So I would really just sort of draw a circle. Okay, so let's see here. Here's the little drawing I started just to show you, and I can do this with marker. I first started with my pumpkin. Now, if you don't want to put a pumpkin, that is totally cool. You could put something like that. It's upside down. You could put something like that, or several flowers. It doesn't have to be, a pumpkin, but here's a pumpkin that I started to draw, and usually with this, and I'm just going to outline it for you real quick. I kind of start like that, and then I, well, probably want to get your outside edges first, and then I think about these, the ribs in the pumpkin. And so I kind of just draw it first, and then I get this in here so that it's more three-dimensional. Okay, so there's the beginning of my pumpkin. And the stem can just kind of come out here and scoot around a little bit, and maybe have something like that happening. All right, and then I've got some leaves here just to sort of position it on the paper nicely. And so, like I said, some of these things I'll draw, and then the leaves I'll fill in as I go around. Maybe I'll put a little sunflower up here, and that I usually start with a circle, and then just arrange the petals around it. So think about what you want to do for yours. And like I said, just start adding your flowers. I'll show you an acorn. We'll do an acorn together. We'll do an oak leaf together. Maybe put some more back here. Okay, this flower is kind of like these, and I like to just paint them. But basically, all they are is a circle with some curvy lines for the petals. It smells like marker in here now. I didn't really want that to happen. And you can add a few little leaves. I'm thinking also about the direction of the leaves. They're the leaves and the, so they're kind of heading this way and this way. And it kind of makes it a nice design when you do that. So let's do a little oak leaf. They're kind of fun to make. I'll do one on here real quick. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And these are really just curvy lines that are fun to do, and they get a little bit smaller maybe. That one's not that great. See? Okay, let's make another one. These are there. I like to make these, and they always turn out a little bit different. So little oak leaves. And let's do a little acorn too, so that you know how to do that one. So I'm going to make a little U shape, and then I'm going to make a mark that goes like that, and then the cap is around like this, and then it has that little thing that's kind of connected to the branch. Okay, so that's the basic idea for a little acorn. Okay, so I'm going to keep going here on this, and here's another little flower. I'm just going to get these organized on here so I know where I'm headed once I start to paint. It's nice to have a little area so that you can mix your paints, like a little tray or a plate or something. It's always good to have that handy. You'll need some water, and you'll need a brush or two. say. All right, so I'm drawing the big things, and then, like I said, I can fill in later with some of these smaller things. And remember that in nature, things are not all perfectly straight. I'm making a lot of curved lines. And even if I made inside my leaf here, I make some marks here, I'm making it with some curves as opposed to perfectly straight. Okay, so think about that a little bit. Thank you so much, Tom.
You're welcome.
Okay, so this is what I would suggest when you're organizing your wreath. And with watercolor, we think about layers. So I would do a layer of a wash of color, and then I can let it dry, and then I can add detail. So that's what, well, you can kind of see in some, oh, that one's not a very good example, but maybe right here, you can see that I painted that little flower and then later went in and did some detail work. Okay. And same with the little acorn. It's kind of fun. Okay. I'll give you guys a minute to get organized. All right, that's pretty good. Okay. I really think that the organizing of a painting is very important to have things set up the way that you want them so that you have a pleasing design. Notice that I offset the pumpkin a little bit to the right. I didn't put it dead center. We like to repeat things. Generally, you know, have maybe 3 of the same thing, and it can vary in size. So some of my shapes are small and some are medium sized and some are larger. And we'll do the same thing with color. We'll have repeat colors throughout the design so that it gives it a unity and cohesiveness. It's kind of an important thing in art. I am going to just show you a couple things. And so this is a little practice. Now you might have a scrap piece of paper nearby, and that would be really good to have, because that way you can test your paint colors and you can do a little practicing with me if you want to. You don't have to, but I'm going to show you a couple ways to make leaves, because we'll be doing leaves with this project. And I'm getting a nice little bit of paint on my brush from my Yarka set here. And I just put some water in here to activate that paint. I don't want to have too much water, and that's the trickiest thing to understand and to learn. How much water do I need with my pigment? The more water you use, the lighter the value will be. The more, you know, the more pigment you use, the darker it will be. Okay? Are they seeing this like this? Or?
Yeah, they are.
It's a little bit.
The camera will focus in a minute.
Okay. So
it can't find anything to focus on.
Oh, I get it. Okay, so I'm going to do a little leaf, a couple different leaves for you. Usually one of the ways I would start is with the stem. So I'm up on the tip of my brush, drawing the stem, and then I can do a petal, okay, with a couple brush strokes, and then bring another one here. So I'm pressing down on my brush, so it has to do with the pressure of the brush. So how I push down and then I lift up. Okay. Well, you can make these pretty easily, and you can also change the color that you're using. So if I want my green to be a little bit more of a yellow green, I just mix the green and the yellow together, and it changes it up by doing that. And you know, a lot of us know this because we've been painting for a while, but not everybody's been painting for a while, so it's good to just you know, talk about that a little bit. So we can go like that. Remember, do your leaves. These are relatively small, but it just has to do with pushing down with your brush a little bit and lifting up. And I am sort of anchoring my hand or a little bit down on the table so I can be more precise in the marks that I make. Okay, let's try a little bit of like wheat. Whoops, I'm using the yellow ochre, which is in the paint set, but you can use any color you want to. So that's that one right there. And we can do the same thing by making a brush stroke up, and I can make tiny little marks here, and I'm actually pulling from the stem and pulling them up with the tip of my brush. So I'm really just making marks and drawing a bit. Now once you do a layer of this and it dries, then you can always go back with your a bit darker color and add a deeper value. Okay. Another fun one is this one that I kind of like making these. I don't really know what they are, but I think I saw some on the way over here. I don't know what they're called though. Let's see if I can do this right. So this one I'm pushing down and I'm making kind of a curved shape at the top and bringing it to the stem instead of coming from the stem. Well, these are fun to make. And then I can touch the edges here with a little more color while it's wet, and it's gonna do a little bit of a bleed or a run, we call it, and get a little darker here and there. While it's wet, you can do that. Or you can add more. Whoops. Okay? So I'm gonna start with my pumpkin, and I'm gonna grab some orange right from my paint tray, and if you don't have orange, you can make it with yellow and a little red. And you can make it that way. This, again, it's quite a small area, and I'm just filling this in a little at a time. In other words, I'm going to skip over to this area where the ribs are sort of dividing the pumpkin. And then later I'll go back and add my details. Now I'm using Hansa yellow, which is a lovely, I'll show you, a lovely warm yellow right here. Okay, and there's my orange. And I can mix them together because they are friendly neighbors, right? They're analogous colors, so they can get mixed together. I can mix on my tray, but I can also mix right on my paper. So here I can get this a little bit darker. Again, because it's damp, I can do this.
Thank you.
And I'm just filling this in. Now I'm leaving a little bit of white space between the ribs or between these parts of the pumpkin. This is the rib right here. So I'm leaving it intentionally because I'm going to go back later and add some line work for detail. Okay. So really the pumpkin, if you're doing one, that's going to be your main idea here. And the rest are taking second stage, or this is center stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I know it's going to be a little darker at the bottom. So I've got a little bit darker pigment. That just means more pigment on my brush. I'm popping some color in here to start to get it so that it's has 3-dimension to it. I'm going to wait to do the stem because I don't really want it to all run together. So, all right, I'm going to move up here to this little flower, and I'm going to have that be, I think I'm going to stick with the orange and yellows. And I'm just going to first start with the petal and paint my petals. And these are very similar to the way that we did the leaves. You're just pressing down a bit with your brush and then lifting up. Okay, pretty simple. Leaving the center empty because I'll go back later and fill that in. And I can always get more color here and dab it a bit into the center area, near the center, I should say, and at the ends. Now, those pencil lines will end up having to get erased. So I'm really just working my way around my painting to fill in where I want to have the bigger shapes, and then the leaves go pretty quickly. I'm erasing this because I just want to do something different here. Maybe go with a little bit of more of a pink. Okay, so here's my center. And then I'm going to use a little bit of red with my orange and change it up a little bit. Usually with watercolor, whoops, we work light to dark, and we work general to specific. In other words, I'm not adding a lot of details here yet, but I will once things are dry. I think that's fun to change that color up a little bit so that it's not all the same. And I could give this a yellow center or really any color that I want. Okay, so again, I'm popping in a bit of red here into this area just to give it a little more definition and color. I'll flip it up. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put another flower up here, I think. And this time I'm going to go into some purple. Flower. So I start with the center and then just go filling it in, like these kinds of leaves, petals. So you want your paint to flow in a way that your brush stroke has enough pigment and water combination so that you can do your shapes without having to always go and get more. In other words, this petal has enough, the brush has enough paint on it for me to do this petal. And now I'm reaching in and getting more pigment. Okay. So now that I made this decision here to make a purple flower, I can go, when I do my centers of my other flowers, I will probably make those purple. And sometimes, you know, you just think of these ideas as you're going along. And that's what's so fun about making paintings and doing art. It's like, oh, that would be fun. Try that. Okay. So there's my little purple flower. And I probably need another little purple flower now. I just saw purple and I thought, oh, that would be very nice. Maybe over here, I'll do a little one. So I changed the shape of the flower. It's not exactly the same, but the color here is going to make it cohesive. And now I know I need one more over here. And I'll make it just kind of like a little aster. So you can use your brush in lots of ways. You can use the side of the brush. You can use the brush, the tip of the brush for drawing, right, Tom?
Yep.
You can change the pressure that you're applying when you're making your marks. Just really kind of fun to do. Okay, I'm going to pop over to my acorns. I'm using that nice brown that we have here in the set. I didn't want to get too dark because I want to be able to do some line work on top of them. So I might have gone a bit too dark, but we always remember, like Tom always reminds me, that the watercolor is going to dry lighter. So you want to keep that in mind. Once it starts to dry, it'll dry lighter. Okay, and I'll go and do the little caps, excuse me, in a little bit. Okay, we're coming along. The oak leaves might be a good one to do next. And because I've got some brown here on my brush. If your water starts to get kind of discolored, mine is totally fine, but you know, just go get some fresh water. You know, it's always good to have, you don't want to end up with mud on your paper. So these I'm just painting that nice warm brown. Okay. Gotta think of what to do there. Finish my little top on my acorn. So that's a little bit lighter brown, and it's filling that in there. Now these are dry, so I can go and pop in some color for the centers of my flowers. So really just check for dryness before you move ahead with things. So I think I'm ready to add some leaves to this. Oh, I better do some berries. How about that? And you can add, you could make blueberries too if you wanted. That'd be kind of fun. Or little red berries. You can think about where you want them. I started some over here, so whoops, this one. Just gonna make that little circle shape here and then fill it in and leave a little highlight. Don't make them too big because they're small and okay. Okay, so I've got that yellow ochre and I'm going to do some brown with a little bit of the yellow ochre mixed together to do some of these shapes here. So as you sort of do a project like this, it's kind of fun because you are creating as you go along and changing it up as well. And I think that's kind of a fun thing to do. And you think about, oh, maybe I need a little more of this or that over here, and you can just add it. I'll probably do a lot more of these because I think they kind of add to it. It look really nice. Okay, I'm going to join some of these berries together, and I'm just drawing from the berries with my pencil, my brush on my pencil. Sorry. And I am turning it. You're probably noticing that I'm turning my watercolor paper because, you know, I need to get into certain areas, and I don't want to get my hand into the parts that are damp. But I just want to show you with a bit of a darker pigment, I can go back into some of these leaves and, you know, maybe make this one behind a little bit darker. So I'm just adding some more paint so that it's darker here. And then I can also do some line work with the darker value over top of the dried surface. So my leaves, I'm just getting some nice green here. I like the green in this paint set. If you have Viridian, which is a nice green, you can mix it with a bit of red, and it will give you a green that's more like this, like more of a pine tree sort of a green. Sap green is another good one if you've got sap green. But I just mixed this up with a little bit of yellow, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to do these leaves now. There's no real particular order in which you need to do things. It's just think about where things are, you know, if they're next to each other and they get wet and you're painting, then you need to skip over to another area so that you don't, so they don't bleed.